Good morning, Brother Semisi, and thank you very much for being here. It's really a pleasure for us to have you for this interview. My first question to you, as you know, we are here to discuss about the new social contract. But given the current challenges facing multilateral institutions, including the UN system and the ILO, why do you believe it remains crucial for constituents? When I say constituents, I'm talking about government, workers, and employers to continue and to invest and upload the ILO's normative mandate.
Well, it's important for unions not only to invest, but to uphold these normative mandates because ILO has a very unique structure, and that is through the tripartite engagement of employers, workers, and government. Now, it's through this tripartite engagement that we've been able to not only maintain, but manage the ILO standards. These ILO standards are very important, regardless of geopolitical issues, climate change, pandemics. It's these standards that allow workers' rights to be protected and hold the tripartite partners accountable, ensuring that there's a stable economy at the end of all the issues that we face. So I think it's very important that we continue to manage the ILO mandates.
Coming from Fiji and from the Pacific Islands, what's your evaluations about the question of social dialogue and tripartism in your region, in your country?
Contextualize it to Fiji. We've seen for many years how the standards have protected us, even though it took some time for our government to comply to the standards that we managed to ratify. These standards have actually held government accountable, brought the parties together to have meaningful dialogue. And the changes are now evident through our government participation. Tripartite mechanism had existed, but was not really active until very recently. So we are witnessing the need for these standards to be maintained in our state.
So, in the era of growing inequalities and social exclusions, how can trade unions represent better the voice of all workers, particularly those more likely to be in vulnerable situations, such as the women, the youth, women, but also the migrant workers, or let's talk about particularly the workers in the informal economy, which, as you know, is in expanding in many countries, including in Fiji and in the Pacific Islands. So, what could be the role of unions to represent these categories of workers to advocate for a greater social cohesion and sustainable development?
I believe it's a moral imperative for unions to strategize in the world of work that we are experiencing now with climate change and labor mobility, and also for those that have the most vulnerable workers, the women, the youth. I say this because where we're from in Fiji, there is a cultural norm. There also exist cultural barriers that at times disallows union participation in the communal settings. For example, in a village setting, the men are always considered more of a breadwinner or to be employed. But the world of work is changing, where women are also actively participating in the world of work. For the unions to strategize or be vocal in a village setting, it would need some cultural barriers to be removed, for that to be to enable union awareness and education at that level. It's not only in a city setting, but we have various districts with with villages in existence. So it's important for the union to strategize, relook at their policies and how well they can organize depending on the different rural settings that they will have to be part of.
So you talk about the critical importance of strategizing for the unions, particularly to attract the young workers.
Yes.
Let's imagine you have a young workers who is living in Suva, in Fiji, who are watching this interview and who is looking for a job and who are expecting a lot from unions. What message would you like to convey to him or to her in order to join the labor movement and to continue the fight for labor rights and social justice?
I think in the Fiji context, or something that we've constantly had a conversation in, is awareness and education. I'll take me for an example. I only became aware of union work or union movement when I got my job. So there's a big gap from high school to tertiary education to my first job. There's a big gap in existence where there has not been a serious discussion on how to empower the youth, how to educate them, creating an awareness that their rights are protected before employment. There is something to look forward to. The history of union work has existed for more than 200 years, since the 18th century. But this information has not trickled down to the younger generation that are looking forward to employment. So I think, like I mentioned before, in terms of strategizing, that's where union work is lacking in terms of organizing. That we start at the grassroots and we educate the younger generation and talk to them about the history of union work and their rights as a worker, their rights pre-work, but also for them to understand the good, the working conditions we are experiencing now. It's because of unionism. It's because we were active participants from day one until now, so that we, the younger generation, don't face a sort of a shock culture when they get into work and then realize their rights at a later stage. So strategizing, if this message has to go out to the youths, there's a lot of information out there. No one can say in this generation, with the technology and advancement that we're in, that information is lacking. So information is out there. The rights of the workers are there. I believe it's educating, creating that awareness at an earlier stage.
Just looking to the future, as you know, the second World Summit for Social Development will take place this year. What key actions should the ILO and its constituents prioritize to forge and realize a meaningful new social contract from your perspective?
I think it was part of our discussion yesterday, and to continue with, to answer that question, two major issues I see that stand out for the Pacific Islands, and that is climate change and labor mobility. I'd like to thank the ILO for initiating the dialogue discussions on climate change. I was part of that workshop last week down in Fiji. It was very informative to see union leaders in the Pacific own up and say or make statements such as, "This is news to me. I am grateful to be present for ILO to conduct this workshop so that I can be informed of my rights with respect to the new contracts, to the change in the world of work because of climate change." As I stated yesterday, the countries of the Pacific are facing degrading conditions through climate change because of our bigger brothers and sisters who are really not paying attention to the effects of what they're creating in the world, in the climates. So we are aware of the new contracts that is going to be or is planned for the future. I think what the ILO needs to take up in the summit is the seriousness of climate change and how it's affecting the world of work in the smaller Pacific Islands. The other matter that I mentioned is labor mobility. We are also, through the tripartite mechanism, engaging with the countries that are taking on the laborers from the Pacific. All we are ensuring is that their rights are protected from initiation, the engagement, to their work, and also to their reintroduction back into our societies, to make sure that they are looked after when they leave their home countries. So we are engaging with that. We are grateful that continuous dialogue is happening. And like we talked about, dialogue, meaningful dialogue is very important.
To conclude, Brother Semisi, you talk about the urgency for climate change to take actions. We are living in a very critical moment with multiple crises. My final question to you will be to know what could be your final message regarding these different crises that are affecting the world of work, but particularly given the situations in your regions where the climate change is impacting already the people there and the working people there. What could be your final message to those who are watching this interview and to the unions worldwide?
I believe there should be meaningful dialogue, not just to convene and have a discussion and conversation about it, but to seriously consider the implications on climate change on the world of work. We're, we're already disadvantaged in terms of our geographic locations, our economic position. And then to put on climate issues on top of our struggles, I think the rest of the world needs to really look into the seriousness of the effects on the working environment for the people in the Pacific. The implementation of these discussions or the agreements that we've had, the states have had on climate change, it has to be a series. Maybe bring it down to the Pacific, hold it in one of our Pacific islands for them to really see how this is affecting the world of working. So,
Thank you very much, Brother Semisi, about this conversation.